know.
Good morning. Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to another Shine Facebook Live. I'm Bronwyn, Shine physiotherapist, and I'm joined this morning by the lovely Lorna Saunders again from Positive Steps Physiotherapy. Thank you, Lorna, for joining us.
Good morning.
So if you're watching this either live or on the replay, please say hello. And if you've got any questions or comments as we go through, or anything you want to ask or say, any sort of ahas, then please put them in the comments below as well. But please know that this is a public forum. So if you don't want anything to be out in the public, then you feel free to give us a ring or email us. And the lovely Jenny in the background is going to put the link in the comments. Yeah, so Lorna, what have you got for us today?
So today I'm going to talk about looking after yourself so that you are then able to look after others, because obviously that's what so many of your members do. So I've got a little PowerPoint, so I'm just going to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to share it and it's going to be back to front, but let's not worry about that. 2 seconds. Can you tell I'm a novice at this? We're going to go. There we go. Let's share. Okay. Oh, that's the last one. Good start. There we go. Ta-da! Everything Monday morning. Okay. So I am Lorna Saunders, as Bron said. So I own Positive Steps Physiotherapy. So I worked in the NHS for 16 years before I took the huge step to step out into the independent sector and into the private world. And I've been working independently for 8 years now. Positive Steps itself was established in 2017, and it's grown really from strength to strength since then. So it started off as just me, and now we're a team of 4. So there's 2 physios and 2 physio assistants, and we cover Staffordshire, Shropshire and Cheshire, and we cover much further when we do virtual consults as well. So we look after children, we do children's physio, and we also do adult neuro rehab. So adults that have had brain injuries and strokes. So yeah, that's kind of what we look at. And we believe really strongly in helping all our clients address their own needs. So we want them to feel empowered so that in between our physio sessions, they're able to keep going and they're able to keep getting better. And what we're really, really passionate about is just trying to make life easier and more enjoyable for the families that we work with, because so often life is a battle for the families we work with. They've got to fight for everything. And we want to make sure that we make that easier. And that is part of kind of when we treat people, we look at what approach suits them best so that we know it's going to be a good fit. So today really linked with that, because like I say, it's about looking after yourself. So what we're going to look at, first of all, is we're going to look a little bit about our back and our spine. Now, I do this session as a face-to-face course, and it's a half day. So today is very much going to be a kind of whirlwind tour, just a little bit of a taster to let you kind of, learn a little bit more. So our spine is made up of 33 vertebrae, so the bones, the vertebrae. There's 33 different ones. They're split up into different sections. So we've got our cervical spine at the top, our neck. Then we've got our thoracic spine, and then our lumbar spine is our lower back. And then we've got our sacrum, which is where our spine connects with our pelvis. In between the vertebrae, we have our discs. So the discs are there as almost like a cushion, as a shock absorber. And they're made up of quite a tough outer layer and then a kind of jelly-like centre. And like I say, they are the shock absorber. So we take quite a lot of force through our backs when we walk, when we're sitting, but when we jump, when we run, there's quite a lot of force can go through our spine, and these discs just absorb some of that force. The function of our spine is twofold really. So it gives us mobility and it also gives us stability. And they work, so our cervical spine at the top, our neck is a mobile part. Our thoracic spine, so kind of at our shoulder blades, that's a very stable part and it doesn't move as much. Then our lumbar spine, that's a mobile part again. And then the sacrum, that's a stable part. So you go kind of mobile, stable, mobile, stable. And what's really, really important is that we're aware of what is a good and what is a bad posture. So, and because our posture to us is normal. So how we sit, that's our norm. So we have to kind of retrain a little bit, retrain our brains and get a little bit more muscle memory about what is a good posture. So a really good way to look at our own posture. So in standing, if you stand side on to a mirror, you can look and you almost want to be able to put a plumb line. So if you were to hold a string with a weight at the bottom, it would make a vertical line. So that vertical line should go through your ear, your shoulder, your hip, your knee, and your ankle. So if you have a little look in the mirror when you're standing side on and see whether that's the case, or get someone else to help and get someone else to give you feedback. Are your ears, too far forward? Are your shoulders too far forward? So have a little look and try and correct and try and get that vertical line and just feel how that feels. And you'll need to practice because it's that muscle memory. So you'll need to keep practicing and retrain yourself as to what is a good posture. Similarly in sitting, we can do the ear, the shoulder and the hip. And then the knee and the ankle will be in line with each other. Now in sitting, you need to make sure you've got the support. You can't actively hold yourself in that posture all the time. And I think that's something that we've all become aware of more this year, because we've suddenly maybe gone from working in offices where we had a decent chair and a decent desk that had been assessed. And then we've come home. Have we got a workstation? Have we got an office? If we have, probably not the best one. So people have certainly become more aware of their posture when they're sitting. The other way to check, and again, giving you kind of things you can take away, is the base-to-face checkpoint. So the base-to-face checkpoint is a really nice way to kind of check your position before you move, before you do something, before you move someone or move something. And we start at the bottom and we work up. So if we think about our feet, you want your feet to be in a nice, stable, wide base. If your feet are really close together, you're off balance, you're much more at risk of falling or wobbling over. You then think about your knees. Now, we all kind of know you've got to bend your knees, but actually we don't want to overbend them. You don't want to crouch all the way down over and over again, because over bending your knees can cause just as much damage. So you want to bend them, but not too much. We think about our legs. So in our legs, we've got two of the strongest muscles. We've got our quads that are the front of our thighs, and then you've got your glutes in your bottom. And these are really big, strong muscle groups. So we want to use them when we're moving things or moving people. We want to make most of these really strong muscles. The muscles in our back actually aren't really that strong, so we don't want to be overusing them. But we then think about our back. So our back shouldn't be poker straight, but it shouldn't be a C either. So it shouldn't be really bent, really flexed. Your back is a kind of natural S shape, and you want to try and keep that natural S shape curve as well, just to be aware of it really when you're moving. We keep going up. You want to think about your arms. So your arms, if anyone remembers physics from when they were at school, if you were to hold something at arm's length, it would feel much heavier and it would be much harder to lift than if you hold it close. And that's to do with the lever. So the longer the lever, the heavier the weight. So keep things close. Your hands, you want to have a good grip. So with some of our clients, we'll use maybe things like handling belts. So that's a belt that goes around your waist and it's got a handle on it. And that gives you a good grip when you're trying to help maneuver or mobilize someone. And it stops us falling foul of the old holding onto their clothes, because that's not the best in any kind of way. And it's not really nice for the individual person. We then have to think about our head. So we think about our head, we use our head twice. So we use our head to think and to plan and to remember all these things. And then we use our head because that leads. So if you look up with your head, that's at the top of your spine and that's going to lead. And you can then look where you're going to travel, where you're going to go. So we use it twofold. The other thing we've got to think about with our backs is just being a little bit aware about what can cause injury. So there's three main kind of headings. We've got accidental injury, we've got overexertion. So if we try to lift something that's too heavy, it's too big, and you've then got the cumulative effect. So that kind of little movements that you're doing, but over and over and over and over again. And that repetitive strain is what can cause injury. So with our spines, if we are flexing, if you're bending too much and you bend and you bend and you bend, the pressure on your discs is at the same point every time, and it will just squeeze and it will squeeze and it will squeeze, and then it might just bulge and it might just stay a little bit bulged, and that's all it can take, because in our spine, the vertebrae form a spinal column, and through this spinal column is our spinal cord, and then out like little fingers come our spinal nerves from all levels, all the way up and down our spine. And if those discs bulge and stay bulging, they don't go back into their space, then they'll press on these nerves, and that's when you get pins and needles or pain, and that can be felt down your arms if it's up at your neck that you've injured, or it can be felt down your legs. And I think we're all aware of sciatica. So sciatica is when the sciatic nerve that comes from your lower back is pinched or pressed on in some way, and people will feel the pain then down all the way down the leg. They'll feel it in maybe the top part of the leg or in the foot, but that's because it's been pinched up to at the spine. So that's that cumulative effect. The other thing we've got to think about is our own personal risk factors. So how old are we? Now, there's no getting away. As you get older, you don't get fitter. Well, people do get fitter, but your body, as you get into older age, things do start to degenerate a little bit, and we've just got to be aware of that. We've also got to think about our own stature. So I'm 6 foot, which you can't see from a virtual call, but I am 6 foot tall. So I've always got to think about my kind of height that I'm working at, and I've got to make sure that I protect my back. You've got to think about your own level of fitness. So how fit are you at that time? You might have been really fit before, but maybe you've had a bad few months and you're not as fit as normal. If you go to then lift something that maybe you could have managed a few months ago, you're at risk of injury. So you've got to be always aware of your level of fitness, your ability to kind of, your stamina. And then you've got to think about any injury that you have. So if you have an injury anywhere, it could impact on your ability to move, to handle, And you've got to think about how that then affects other parts of your body. So let's just go to the next slide. So we've looked at how we kind of are when we're static, but what's really important is that we look at how we move, because we move all the time, that's what we do. So if we look at a healthy back, but also a healthy mind, because that is just as important. So to have a healthy back, we've got to have that mobility. So, and again, like we've just said about injury, we've got to think about the impact that one part of our body has on the other. So we are a kinetic chain, like the song said, the hip bone's connected to the backbone's connected to the, it's so true. If we've injured our knee, it's going to affect our hip, it's going to affect our back. If you've got a problem with your lumbar spine, your lower back, that's going to affect the two bits either side, so the thoracic spine and the sacrum. So you've got to just be aware that we are all one piece, and just because it's only just a dodgy ankle, it doesn't mean we've got to forget about it. We've got to think about it when we're moving and handling. The other thing we've got to think about is cross-lateral, so right to left. If you've got a bad right knee, your left knee is going to know about it. So you've just got to always think right to left, up and down. We are joined. The other thing about mobility is if we think about muscles. So a lot of the clients I see will have quite tight muscles in their legs. So the hamstrings, which are at the back of the thigh, if they're tight, they work as a pair with the quads at the front of the thigh. So if the hamstrings are tight, the quads may be weak because they work as a pair. So we've just always got to, again, it's about being aware. We've got to think about how we can strengthen. So those big muscles in our legs that we talked about, those quads and those glutes, they're the ones we want to use, so we've got to keep them strong. So how can we keep them strong? What exercises can we be doing to get them strong? We've got to think about our endurance and our fitness. Excuse me. We've got to, like I say, try and keep that at a really good level. Balance. Balance is so, so important. And balance is important because it's about proprioception. So we touched on proprioception in my last Facebook Live with Shine. Proprioception is the ability for the feet to talk to the brain and vice versa. It's the ability for us to know where our feet are without having to look. If that proprioception is affected, either because you've got an injury or because sometimes people just don't develop a really good proprioceptive awareness, but if that's affected, then you're more at risk because your balance won't be as good. And if your balance isn't as good, when you try and move someone or move something, there's more of a risk. And then what's just as important is relaxation. So it's really important that we relax physically as well as relax in our minds. So our muscles, if they work too hard, too much, they can get really tense. We all know about having muscle knots kind of in our shoulders and our neck, and it's about having that ability to just allow things to relax. So we've talked about a healthy back. What about a healthy mind? Because that is just as important. So this little scan here shows us the activity in our brain when we're sitting quietly. So there is activity, obviously, but not loads. And look at the difference after just a 20-minute walk or 20 minutes of exercise. There's so much more activity in the brain. And why that's important is because it's been known for a long time that walking is man's best medicine. Hippocrates, over 2,500 years ago, he used to just give patients herbs and tell them to walk. For whether they had a physical ailment or a mental ailment, just, give them some herb, tell them to walk. And you know what? Quite a lot of them got better. Because the more we move, the more brain activity, but it's the amygdala, it's the part of the brain that controls our emotions that gets kind of that kickstart. And that's what gives people that runner's high. So 20 minutes of walking or 20 minutes of activity is enough for the brain to release its endorphins, its own painkillers. And that is so, so important. And I think we're more aware of that now. Certainly a couple of years ago, there was a gentleman was on the One Show, and he'd walked his way to good mental health, and he'd walked the length and breadth of Britain. He was obviously, it went to the extreme. But he just came on, and you can still, there is a link, the One Show video. Jenny will have a look for this. There is a One Show video. I can't remember his name, it's gone out of my head. But he walked his way, and he walked the length and breadth of Britain. And it's a beautiful video. And it just really goes to prove the point. So if we were doing the half day practical, face-to-face, sorry, this is when I'd get you moving and everyone would go, oh no, go away. But we're not going to do it here. I'm just going to talk about it. So when we get moving, there's lots of different ways nowadays, by the power of YouTube, there's loads of different videos and stuff you can use to get yourself a little bit more active, a little bit fitter at home. But what's really important is we know how hard we're working. So a really easy way to do it, I've just shown here. So what we need to work out is we need to work out what our maximum heart rate should be. So what our heart rate should not go over. And that can be worked out by doing 220 minus your age. So I've done mine. I'm not shy, I'm 44. So my maximum heart rate would be 176. I'm hoping I've got my maths right now. I did check. But we don't want it to get there. We really want to work at a moderate level. And a moderate level is when our heart rate gets to 50 to 70% of our maximum. So I've worked out 50% of my maximum and 70% of my maximum. So that is the window that my heart rate should be in when I've done moderate exercise. So you would take your pulse at rest. So I find it easiest at your wrist with 2 fingers, take your pulse over 60 seconds and note it there. So that would be my resting heart rate. And then I do my exercise and then I would retake my pulse over 60 seconds and I would be able to see whether I was working within my moderate exercise intensity. Now, there are lots of different things out there you can do to keep mobile, to keep fit and keep active. You've got your Pilates and your yoga and all of these things are great. But what we talked about last time, the dynamic movement skills, is an absolutely excellent all-rounder. So DMS works on mobility. It works on strength and stability. It works on fitness. It works on proprioception. So it really does tick all the boxes. It can be done at home. It can be done in 10, 15 minutes. So it's an absolute win-win. So have a little look. Like I say, the DMS live that I did last week is on the Shine Facebook page. So have a look back at that. And then, like you mentioned, it's really important that you find things that help you relax physically and mentally. The Mind charity have lots of different ideas, but just some are, you can go for a walk, you can listen to music, and get creative. If that's your thing, if you do a bit of sewing or a bit of crafting or some colouring, then that can really help you to relax. And I think the other thing that's really important is that we do a tech check. So this year, more than ever, we have been attached to screens, as we are now. So I do far more on screens now, but what I then do to kind of counterbalance that is that I try and make sure that in the evening I'm not attached to screens. And I think for all of us to just have some downtime where we're, and even, goodness me, a whole day without any screens, that kind of thing is just so good for everything, for your mind, for your body and your soul. It's so, so important. So we've thought about our back, we've thought about getting moving, how to keep a bit fitter and healthier. So what we're going to look at now is kind of how we assess the risk. So everybody's individual circumstances are different. Only you know what your individual circumstances are. So just an easy way for you to assess the risk every time. A little acronym to help you remember is TOW. So TOW is T for task. So evaluate what you have to do first of all. Just look, what am I going to do? Do I have to manually lift that box or person, my loved one? Do I need to lift them, or have I actually got equipment that could help? But it takes a bit longer, so I don't tend to use it, so I'll just lift them. Well, is that worth the risk? If it's a box, can it be slid? Do you have to actually lift it? So just evaluate that task first of all. Individual, so you've got to think about you, but you've got to think about the individual you're caring for. And we're going to come on to individual in a bit more detail next. Load. Now, it's not a great way to describe, but it's just an easy way to remember this TOW acronym. Load refers to weight. So the weight of the person, the weight of the item that you are going to lift. Can you reduce that load? If it's an item, can you take things out? If it's a person, can you bring them close? Okay? Like we said about the physics and the levers, if you're holding someone at arm's length, it's going to be a lot harder than if you're holding them close. Reducing the load, who's guilty of this? I've done it. I'm going to get all the shopping out the car in one trip because I can. Is it worth the risk? It's just, obviously that's a bit extreme, but it's true. We all do try that. If you can do it in 2 trips, 3 trips, do it in 2 or 3, because your back is too important to risk doing it in 1 trip. And then the environment, so E. Look at your surroundings. Have you got the lights on? This might sound daft, but it's starting to get dark. Put the lights on so everyone can see. Is the floor clear? Probably not. Whose house has a clear floor? Nobody's, especially this time of year. But, you know, just make a space. Just plan a little bit ahead. Have you got equipment you can use? Is it to hand? Or is it in the other room so you think, oh, I won't bother? So just take that couple of minutes, that's all it takes, just to plan and to organise. And then, like I said, we're going to, the individuals. We are all individuals, and it's super important that we really think about this. So about us and about the individual we're caring for. So with regards to the individual that you're caring for, what postural stability have they got? So that means what head control, trunk control, balance, what is that like? Think about that and the impact that will have on the manoeuvre you're going to try. Think about their control of voluntary movement. So their ability to hold on. Do they have muscle spasms that can come and you don't know? Have they got a startle reflex that the doorbell rings, they startle and they were holding on, but they've just startled? So that's a big one with littlies when parents will be carrying them up the stairs. And if they've got a startle, you've got to always be aware of that, because if you're holding them a certain way and they startle, there's a real risk. What's their muscle tone like? Are they floppy? Are they tight? Again, it impacts what you do and how you do it. Think about any restriction to movement. So have they got any, like you say, tight hamstrings? Knees are restricted because the hamstrings have got so tight. Elbows, you know, the arm muscles have got really tight, so the elbows, the shoulders are restricted, you can't quite lift up. You've got to think about all of these things when you're planning how you're going to do things. Or weakness, or low tone, like low tone. If they are weak and then they're not going to be able to participate, you've got to take that into account. Then you've got to think about things like their hearing and their eyesight. So hearing, did they hear the instructions? Can they hear the instructions clearly? Eyesight, should they have glasses on? Your eyesight, should you have glasses on? Just little things that are easily, the number of times you do stuff and they haven't got them on, or it's easily done. And then communication and understanding. So do they use a communication aid? And this is important. So if someone else has come to work with you and they're helping you, it's really important that they know all of this as well. So if they've got a communication aid, do they know how to use it? Do you understand what they're saying? Do the people working with you understand what your loved one's saying or trying to convey? And how much do they understand? So I've got little ones who will only understand 1-part instructions. And it's really easy to give a 2-part instruction and not realise. And they'll say, yeah, but they haven't understood. I know that, but someone new wouldn't know that. So it's really important that all that information is conveyed. And then think about the mood. Is it the end of the day? Are you tired? Are they tired? We all know how much we don't function when we're shattered. Are they not very well? Are they, a bit more moody? Are we working with, teenage kiddos that have different moods depending on different times of the month? Are we a bit more moody? It sounds maybe insignificant, but it's not. And then think about their willingness. If you've got a child that's ended up having a meltdown, is that the time to move them? Are they safe? If they're safe, leave them where they are and move them once they have a willingness to move with you. So just to summarise, we've talked about backs, we've talked about how they're made up and why we need to protect them. We've talked about our posture, what makes a good and not so good posture. We've talked about movement and the benefits of movement and exercise. We've looked at risk assessments and how we can risk assess every situation quickly and concisely, but how we can risk assess. But I think most importantly, we need to remember that we are all individuals with super busy lives, but it's really, really important that we prioritise our health and our well-being. Because like they say, when you go on holiday on a plane, you put your own oxygen mask on first before you help others. And that is the same here. You have to look after yourself so you can look after others. So thank you so much for listening. Any questions, you can put them in the comments box like Bron said. And if not, there's my contact details. You can always get in touch later if you want to do it a little bit more personally. All right, thank you very much. Let's see if I can stop sharing this now. Yay, it worked.
Yay. Oh, well done, Lorna. Thank you. That was so comprehensive and so interesting. Thank you. I especially like, you know, sort of the activity, you know, it doesn't have to be like a sweaty workout session, you know, it's just moving. Like if you know, even our wheelchair users as well, you know, saying just get moving, isn't it? And
I was just getting that heart rate going a little bit faster.
yeah,
Getting that heart rate into that kind of moderate exercise intensity. If you can do that a few times a week, it will make such a difference over time.
yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you very much. I don't think we've had any questions, but I know a few people have watched, so thank you for your time and for sharing your brilliant knowledge with us over the last 3 sessions. It's been really fun and really interesting. It's always lovely
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
to connect with other people. Yeah. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care and have a good Christmas.
Yeah, I know. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.